Guys, after subscribing to this channel, please make sure that you also press the bell icon so that no notification, no new video of mine, any educational video, is missed by anybody.
All right, guys, welcome everybody for this class night. And I'm very, very happy that we have actually a very important topic. I don't know how much you've been through and understanding and how much Viva have you been through, but there's a topic called decreased fetal movements as well for tonight's class, along with Rh negative pregnancy. Now, there is a whole guideline, okay, on decreased fetal movements, what you're supposed to do with such a patient who comes to you with decreased fetal movements. And I've posted a proper video on that on the channel. So everybody who's attending my class right now should know this, that there is a complete video by me on the on this important class. And please go through this video. That's very, very important because you'll be able to understand the guideline and gist. Even after this class, there's no problem. My whole Viva is going to be rotating around these two important topics, Rh negative and decreased fetal movements. And since there's a guideline on that, it's very important for you to once just go through my lecture. That will be sufficient. You do not go through the entire guideline yourself. Just go through my lecture in half an hour. You'll be able to get the gist of the guidelines and you'll be able to do very well in your Viva if you know that. Now, so good evening, everyone, once again. And I was just discussing about the dates of your practical examination, the theory examination. The moment it's released, you'll be knowing it on my channel. My students are very, very proactive. And now today I welcome Shreya again for the discussion on Rh negative pregnancy and decreased fetal movement. So welcome, Shreya. We can start now.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll start, ma'am.
Yeah, you can start.
Presenting a case of Mrs. X, 27 years female, resident of New Tippasandra, Bangalore, employed in private company, studied till BCom, wife of Mr. X, doing private job, belonging to upper middle class by modified Kupuswamy classification. Date of admission was on 12th of August 2024. Last menstrual period was on 11th of December 2023. Expected date of delivery by LMP is 18th of September 2024 by regular menstrual cycles. Period of gestation is 34 weeks, 5 days. Obstetric score, primigravida.
Okay.
Chief complaint, yes. Primigravida with 8 months of amenorrhea, complaint of decreased perception of fetal movement since 1 day. No complaint of PV leaking, bleeding PV.
Okay.
History of presenting illness. Primigravida with 8 months of amenorrhea, complaint of decreased perception of fetal movement since 1 day. That is from 11th of August 2024. She perceived only 3 to 4 movements. She was perceiving active fetal movements daily, 15 to 20 movements per day previously. No complaint of bleeding PV, leaking PV, pain abdomen. No complaint of ball or bladder complaints. No history of cholestasis of pregnancy, no history of diabetes mellitus, hypertension, no history of fetal growth restriction, no history of steroid intake, no history of substance abuse or any other chronic illness.
Okay, Shreya, what is the reason for you to ask all these histories right now at the very onset? This is the first episode of decreased fetal movements, is it?
Yes, ma'am, it is the first episode.
Okay, and why have you been asking these complaints of let's call it bleeding PV, leaking PV? I can understand. We just want to that we do for all antenatal cases. What about bowel and bladder complaints? What are we trying to see in that?
Ma'am, bowel and bladder complaint, ma'am, I'm by telling all this negative history, I'm trying to collaborate and trying to give you a negative history that she is not a high risk patient for decreased fetal movement.
Okay, so all these things that she has illustrated have been only because these are the high risk factors for a patient with decreased fetal movements. Okay, so when you must have seen my video, you would know that there are certain patients which are called high risk for reduced fetal movements, right? That means those patients in which the reduced fetal movements will be taken seriously, the ones which are at high risk for sudden IUD or stillbirth. So she has just given us negative history that she's not currently having any such complaint of cholestasis, because again, there is a high risk of stillbirth here, or diabetes, uncontrolled hypertension. And how did you elicit the history of fetal growth restriction?
Ma'am, I have asked her that what was her scan, that multiple USG scan shows that growth was all right for the baby.
All right. Okay. And no history of steroid intake. Is there any relevance for this, Shreya?
Yes, ma'am. Whenever we give steroid to the patient will have a decreased fetal movement.
Yes. So there is always a perception of decreased fetal movements, mostly specifically by the intelligent patient, that suddenly the fetus has started moving less and feeling less movement. So she's just trying to take out the negative history through the patient. That if there any when I was telling you about the guidelines also, at the very when you're taking the history, you have to club her as a high risk or a low risk patient with respect to sudden IUD or a stillbirth. Okay, so those patients who are high risk for a sudden IUD or this kind of event, stillbirth, they are the ones who are having these factors which she has just told you. One more factor, which is obviously not very relevant for our patient, but still is a very relevant factor, is a previous stillbirth. Okay, so had she been a multi, she would have asked, is there any history of previous stillbirth? So that makes a very high risk for another stillbirth. Here we're just trying to figure out whether we should take this patient very seriously, or we can, maybe this is the first episode, we can just go away with getting a Doppler done, and if everything is fine, we can reassure and send her. This is our main agenda, why we're taking this negative history. Okay. So yeah, now you can tell me about the first trimester history. Anything specific would you want to tell me?
Ma'am, just that she was detected RH negative blood group, O negative on normal ANC workup. Husband was found to be O positive blood group.
Okay,
Indirect
all
Coombs
right.
test was done and noted as negative. Other routine investigation was found to be normal, and she was prescribed tablet Thyronorm 37.5 since conception, ma'am. Other first trimester was uneventful.
So basically, we got to know that she's also RH negative pregnancy. All right. So tell me, Shreya, how do we go about? Suppose we get to know that a patient is RH negative. What is our usual protocol? What are we trying to see? First of all, what do we want to delineate in the first trimester? And the second thing is, how should we, work up the patient right from her being RH negative? What do we want to finally see?
Ma'am, in our patient, she is primary, ma'am. She is RH negative. So the first thing we'll ask the patient is the blood group of the husband. If husband is also RH negative, no further action is needed. But if husband is RH positive, then we have to do a booking ICT, indirect Coombs test, to know the status of the mother, if she is having any previous antibody or not.
You will not do that if her husband is RH negative? You will not do that?
No, ma'am. If husband is RH negative and she is not having any previous history of any sensitizing event or any history of blood transfusion,
you will not do ICT?
then no, ma'am. There is not required to do ICT.
But this got nothing to do with husband being negative, all right? Nothing to do with that. And as far as her history is concerned, you also know how intelligent patients are, whether they're able to give a proper history or not. So ICT becomes mandatory. Okay, it is recommended. And RH negative for husband is important because we are finally looking at we're trying to figure out what the baby's blood group is. This is what we want to finally come down to. So there's a huge algorithm. Did I give you that algorithm, Shreya? Have you included that in the slides?
Ma'am, for decreased fetal movement.
No, for this only. That first, what you do is that we find out the patient is RH negative.
Yes,
so
ma'am. I have included, ma'am. I have included, ma'am, from GTG guideline only. This one, ma'am.
No, this is this is the other one. That is the other one. No, not that. Okay, forget it. Actually, what are we trying to see? What my question to her is that, see, when the patient comes to you with RH negative blood group, she's right, absolutely, that there are two very important parallel things going on. First of all, we have to find out the baby's blood group. We have to reach till the baby's blood group, and then we have to see the patient's isoimmunized status. So what we're doing ICT for is to find out the patient's isoimmunized status. So if ICT is negative, we are safe. Okay, it's an unimmunized, non-immunized pregnancy, and we are very safe to go. And I'll tell you, the chart that she's talking about, that is about the patient, right? The other chart is the one which I'm talking about, the baby, to reach to the baby's blood group. So there are two spokes. Either you go through a very long method which you were doing earlier on before the advent of cell-free DNA, or you straight away go to the cell-free DNA and find out the baby's blood group. It's as simple as that. So the old traditional method is what she's telling you, that if the mother is RH negative, you go to the father's blood group. Okay, some of the examiners will still ask you this. Okay, you'll not be pardoned if you do not know the longer algorithm. So you Rh negative mother, find out the blood group of the father. If it's Rh positive, find out whether it's heterozygous or homozygous. If it is homozygous, obviously the baby is going to be the full chance for the baby to be positive. All right. And if the father is heterozygous, then maybe, may not be. Still, what will come? Cell-free DNA. All right, to find out the baby's blood group. Why not directly find out through the cell-free DNA, right? So the good thing about cell-free DNA is we can find out the baby's blood group with almost 99% accuracy, and we can find out whether the baby is positive or negative, which we finally want to know through such a big loop. This is what I wanted to do. So this is what happens, and all these things are done in the first trimester itself. So if any of these things is missing, obviously cell-free DNA in our country is not very common, but this is there in the guidelines. So you have to at least offer her, right? So in history, she would be asked whether she knows the blood group of the baby or not, because a lot of monitoring, a lot of effort, a lot of anti-Ds will be saved if we just know the blood group of the baby. And remember, guys, one more thing. Suppose the blood group of the baby is negative. Would you skip away giving her anti-D altogether? Are you planning to give that in any which way, Shreya? If it's negative?
Ma'am, if baby's blood group is negative, ma'am, then there is no need to give anti-D.
Absolutely, because even if there is fetal-maternal hemorrhage, there would be, right? But there is no need. There's no sense, correct? All right. One more thing which is I wanted to tell you about ICT, right? Let's come back to our ICT. Like I told you, ICT negative, positive. Is there any other test also for finding out whether the patient is isoimmunized, a quantitative test?
Ma'am, we can do RH
antibody titer, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Guys who are there on the channel, okay? You have to be equally alert for this class. Please write down in the chat box the answers which I keep asking her. I would love to see your responses as well. Sometimes we get some really interesting responses from my students, and it's a very interactive session, correct? So the other thing, apart from the ICT, is the RH antibody titer. Okay, Shreya, tell us whether ICT is a quantitative analysis or a qualitative analysis. What is it?
Ma'am, it is both, ma'am, qualitative and quantitative. It is qualitative because it will tell us that it is positive or negative. But it is only telling us that it is positive or negative. That's why it is qualitative. And quantitative because it will give us the titer.
Okay. And can you briefly tell us what is the pathophysiology of ICT?
Ma'am, in indirect Coombs test, if my patient is suppose, for example, she has already been sensitized, means in her blood, the antibodies will be present. That maternal blood will add we'll add anti-human globulin serum, and we can see agglutination, and we'll measure the dilution titers till what dilution we are able to see the agglutination.
Mm-hmm. And the higher the dilution which you can see the agglutination, the more risky the patient is, because even with maximum dilution, you are able to see the clumping. That means she has a lot of antibodies in her blood. Is that the idea?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. So what cutoff do we have in India, guys? Come on, you answer. All my students. I please don't sleep in the class. Answer, what is the cutoff of ICT titers in India? And are you guys following Rh negative antibody titer, or are you going for an ICT? So everybody says it's 1:16. I agree. 1:16 will be the cutoff titer for us also. Shreya, we decided that, right? So 1:16 is the cutoff titer for ICT. Okay. Now suppose what happens. One of my questions will come here only because this is a question from the guidelines, and then we'll go to that flowchart which we wanted to show the students. Suppose the Rh antibody titer is high. Okay, is high. I'm not saying. Okay, it's positive. Let's say it's positive. Okay, one more very important question before I jump on to that. Rh negative antibody titer. How much is normal? How much is more? How much is severe? Tell me that.
Ma'am, 0 is normal, ma'am. 0, yeah, 0, international.
Rh negative antibody should not be present. 0 is okay, right? And how do we monitor a patient with 0 titers?
Ma'am, we'll do the booking. Ma'am, we'll do at booking. Then again, at 28 weeks, we'll repeat the titer and we'll give the anti-D injection.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. Now, suppose her antibody titer, which one is, severe enough? in which we should just directly, refer her to the fetal medicine department?
Ma'am, if it is 4 international unit per ml, more than 4.
Yes. So and now I'm talking not about ICT, guys. Now I'm talking about Rh negative antibody titer. So Rh negative antibody titer, if it is 4 and above, it is severe, and thus this kind of patient should directly be referred to the fetal medicine department, right? So what you should do is that this patient, once it's referred to the fetal medicine, obviously she has to undergo a lot of other rigorous training. Like, for example, she has to go for a DCT, and maybe a chorecentesis, because of which you'll send the baby's blood group, and after that maybe if the hematocrit is coming very low, then IUT, and so on and so on. The real rigorous processes of saving the baby. Baby might develop hydrops, baby might have to go for MCA-PSV. So all the high-end cases, we'll be discussing that as well. But till that time that the Rh negative has gone, antibody titer has gone to 4 and above, she's still with you. Okay, so between 0 to 4, what do you do, Shreya?
Ma'am, if the titer has come between 0 to 4, then every 4 weekly we should monitor the patient till 28 weeks. Then after 28 weeks, 2 weekly.
Okay. So here is what we are talking about. This one we are talking about, that if it is not clinically significant, that means if it's 0, clinically is not significant, 0, just retest it at 28 weeks, give the anti-D, and that's it. But if it is clinically significant, that means it's between 0 and 4, just keep doing a monthly test till 28 weeks, and then do 2 weekly till delivery. See how it's written over here? Since it's an image, I can't, I think I can draw. Okay, see over here. See, this is 2 weekly and this is monthly over here. Okay, so monthly until 28 weeks, and then 2 weekly till delivery. This you do when it is clinically significant antibody screening, right? And over here, it is no clinically significant antibodies. All you do is a repeat testing at 28 weeks, and then finally you give anti-D, and that's it. But the moment it becomes clinically significant, see, significant antibodies, then you just send her to the respective, see, this one. This is what I was trying to tell you about. DCT, hemoglobin, bilirubin, chorecentesis, maybe IUT. So you're sending the patient to a fetal medicine department, and they are handling all these difficult things. Correct? So this is what I wanted to say. If titers are constant, yeah, that is very important, guys. This monitoring that you're doing over here, very important question. Very good. I'm very, very impressed, Madhumanti. These titers that you're doing over here, between 0 to 4 of Rh antibody titers. See, I'm not talking about ICT, guys, again. Okay, this I'm talking with respect to the RCOG guidelines, and this is I'm talking in terms of Rh antibody titers. It's not ICT. Okay, so if it is between 0 to 4, okay, what you do is that you're doing this monthly, and I'm presuming that the titer is staying between 0 to 4. The moment it crosses 4 over here, we are not doing any monthly or 2 weekly titers. We're straight away sending her to the fetal medicine department, and then the rigorous monitoring is going to start. Then we do not monitor her through the Rh antibodies titers anymore. Then probably we'll start the MCA-PSV titer. And if that also crosses above 1.5 million or more, then we start the rigorous process of chorecentesis, and then finding out the baby's hematocrit, and then giving IUTs, and so on and so forth. Very high-end stuff. But till the time we are having this titers between 0 to 4, yes, it is increased, but it's still not that increased that she goes in for a rigorous monitoring. We are keeping her with ourselves, monitoring her every monthly till 28 weeks, and then 2 weekly till delivery. Is that clear, guys? Everybody who's there in the class, please at least give a thumbs up so that we know we can move forward. This is very important concept, and that should be known to you, okay? So only one person has understood. That is why I should, guys, come on. This thing you should be able to tell me that you've been able to understand, because just in case you haven't, that's actually the gist of this, how to monitor the patient. Very important. Thank you. Thank you so much.